Welcome to our synthetic division part 2 video. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first example here. Use synthetic division to find the other factor. We have 5x cubed minus 4x squared plus 55x plus 10, all divided by 5x minus 10. If you recall from the previous video, we used synthetic division when the leading coefficient was 1. In this case, we have a leading coefficient of 5 for the denominator. Thus, we need to change this into a 1. In order to do that, we're going to rewrite an equivalent expression by dividing every single term by 5. Why am I choosing 5? Well, I'm choosing 5 so that this particular leading coefficient becomes 1. So let's go ahead and do that. Now notice 5x cubed divided by 5 just becomes x cubed. Then negative 40x squared divided by 5 becomes negative 8x squared. 55x divided by 5 becomes 11x. And 10 divided by 5 becomes 2. So that's your numerator. And then in terms of the denominator, we have 5x divided by 5, which is just x. And negative 10 divided by 5, which is just negative 2. Now notice that we have a leading coefficient of 1. Thus, we can use synthetic division. So let's do it. Let's start off by rewriting negative or x minus 2 equals to 0. Let's add the 2 to both sides to solve for x. And notice that x is equal to 2. So let's go ahead and write the 2 in there. Now, we're going to focus our attention in terms of that equivalent expression, and we're going to get the leading coefficients. Careful though, because the leading coefficient for your x cubed is just 1. So let's go ahead and write that one in there. Then you have negative 8. Then we have 11. And then 2. Remember that to do synthetic division, we just drop the first term here. And then we start to do multiplications and addition. So let's do that. Let's start off with 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 8 plus 2 becomes negative 6. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. 11 minus 12 is negative 1. And then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And 2 plus negative 2 is 0. Keep in mind that this is your remainder. This is the coefficient for the constant, or the constant itself, so that's a sub 0. That's your coefficient for your linear term, so that's a sub 1. And this is the coefficient for your actual quadratic term, so that's a sub 0, or a sub 2, I'm sorry. Now here, we're going to rewrite our other factor as follows. The other factor here would simply be 1x squared minus 6x minus 1. Notice I don't really need to write that one, so I'm going to just simplify it as follows, as x squared minus 6x minus 1. Therefore, the other factor missing here is just x squared minus 6x minus 1. So let's take a look at another example. Example 2. Use synthetic division to find the other factor. Again, let's be very careful with the denominator and its leading coefficient. In this case, our leading coefficient is 6. So I need to divide every single term by 6 in order to get an equivalent expression. So let's do that. Now, take a look at this one. We have 30x cubed divided by 6. That's going to give you 5x cubed. Then we have negative 44x squared divided by 6. Okay, so that's going to give you negative 22 thirds x squared after you simplify the fraction. And then plus 40x divided by 6. That's going to give you 20 thirds of x after you simplify the fraction here. And then minus 16/6, which will correspond to negative 8 over 3 after you divide the or simplify the fraction. Now, we're going to divide this by x minus 2/3. Again, one more time after you simplify the fraction. Okay? Now notice we have a leading coefficient of 1, so we can use synthetic division. So let's go ahead and start the process by setting the denominator equal to 0. So we have x minus 2/3 is equal to 0. Let's go ahead and add 2/3 to both sides. And notice that x in this case will be 2/3 positive. So that's what we're going to write here. So 2/3. Then I'm going to use my leading coefficients for my equivalent expression. So I have 5 here, then I have negative 22/3, then I have 20/3, and then I have negative 8/3. Okay. Then we start off by dropping this particular term, so that's 5. And then we do 2/3 times 5. So 2 times 5 is 10 over 3. So 10/3 will be the result. Notice we add this together and we end up with negative 12/3. And negative 12/3 is the same as 4, negative 4. Okay, so let's keep that as negative 4. Then you have 2/3 times negative 4. That's going to give you negative 8/3. We add 20/3 plus negative 8/3. That's going to give you 12/3 positive in this case. And that's going to give you 4. Then you have 2/3 times 4. That's going to give you 8/3 positive. You add negative 8/3 plus 8/3. That's going to give you 0. And we can backtrack a little bit by saying this is your remainder. This is your a sub 0. That's your constant term. Then this is your a sub 1. That's the coefficient for the linear term. And this is a sub 2. So that's the coefficient for your quadratic. Therefore, the factor that is missing here is really 5x squared minus, notice this is a 4, so minus 4x plus 4, and that concludes your actual example. So thank you for watching. Good luck in your homework.